How to make transfers with Remitly, as this service is becoming increasingly important, especially in Colombia, because I've noticed that lately the advertising has been quite focused here. I would like to show directly to people who are in other countries or even those in Colombia who wish to send money to other places how they could do it step by step. First and foremost, when it pertains to receiving the funds, keep in mind that there are numerous local withdrawal options available, such as Davivienda, Bancolombia, Nequi, BBVA, Daviplata, Éxito, Mao, Banco Bogotá, Banco Occidente, Banco Popular, and even some others that might not be listed here but can still be utilized. This information is specifically for individuals residing in Colombia. If you are located in a different country, the withdrawal methods specific to your region will be displayed accordingly. Next, at the top, the initial step is to select the country from which we are sending the money. In this scenario, the countries listed include the United States, Germany, Australia, Austria, Belgium, among others. So here we need to choose. For instance, if we are in Spain, then we will send money to Colombia and the menu will adjust slightly. However, it remains practically the same, with the only differences being the exchange rates and fees due to the currency we are utilizing and naturally the exchange rate of the day. For individuals from another country who, for example, do not wish to receive in Colombia but in Brazil, the Dominican Republic, or any other nation, it essentially depends on the rate they provide us for each currency they send us. In this instance, it would be how much they would return to us for each euro. Therefore, in this context, if someone intends to send money from Spain to Colombia, simply here, if you are sending that money, you input, for example, 500 euros, and it will display that they receive, meaning the recipient in Colombia will receive, in this case, 265,141. It then informs us here that the fee is 99 cents of a dollar, and this is essentially what we will receive, and then the money can be sent to the recipient. However, we must not only consider this, and above all, there is something very crucial. Remember that for making the initial transfer, there is a certain discount and promotion, and if there is another promotion, I will leave it in the description for you to utilize if you are going to execute your first transfer. Nevertheless, if you already make a transfer exceeding 500 euros, the commission or the rate at which they provide us each euro may vary. In fact, it states here that only the first 500 euros sent are eligible for a preferential rate. Beyond that, the rate may alter, so it's vital to be aware of this, and this particularly applies to the initial transfer we make. But we must not only consider this, but also the sending fees: bank deposit 0.99, mobile wallet 0.99, and if it's cash pickup, it's 3.99 euros in this instance. But always remember to verify it in advance here. So let's assume we are no longer sending money from Spain, but directly from the United States. Notice that this changes slightly. In fact, the figure itself already changes, because before it indicated 500 euros and now it states $750, and observe that the amount is somewhat different because it no longer goes by withdrawal, bank deposit, or anything but by amount. So if it's below $500, it's 3.99, and if it's $500 or more, it's 0. This is particularly for the initial transfer, which in some cases will apply a preferential rate. Here, more of the same, we simply input $100, it displays this. But well, once we have verified this, we will click on register. I will leave a link in the description for you to register if you are going to execute your first transfer, so you can obtain a discount or the applicable discount directly, and we will click where it says get this exchange rate, or simply click on register at the top. In my case, I will click there, and simply here we will create our account. I will create mine here with Google, assign our email here. I initiated it, as I mentioned, with Google through Gmail, and we simply have to wait for it to finish loading. So here the page loads, we have to wait a moment, and again here the amount of money will appear. So our exchange rate is this one here, and in fact I want to show you today, just when I am recording this video, how much it is, for when you see this, see the future and see the difference. At this moment it is offering me this rate of 4,277, which in fact we will quickly open the calculator here and do this subtraction here. So it is really at 4,295.58, and we will subtract these 4,227.32, and the difference is these 18 pesos 26, which is not much, but remember that it is because it is my first transfer. So, well, here it informs us that there are offers for new customers, which is what I was telling you. And if you are going to make a transfer for the first time, it is the best because they provide you with the best offers. From the subsequent ones, it is different. Let's click here where it says send money at the top left, and this is where the entire process would be. So first of all, we have to choose what we are sending. So how many dollars are we going to send? For example, let's input $100, and here it informs us that the recipient will receive $427,732, and then we would have to determine what we are going to do for this payment. First, if it is express, this is the fastest shipment of Remitly as it states here, and we can pay with a debit card or credit card, and we have this preferential rate for being the initial transfer, remember. Then we have the economic part where certain charges would not apply, but I honestly recommend this express, only that the one below can be advantageous when we are already making transfers for higher amounts or more than the initial transfer. So in the initial transfer, let's say this is not so relevant, I would choose express because it is the fastest, and simply when we have it here, we will click continue. But before continuing, read what it states below, because sometimes people are surprised and say no, but at no time did they inform me of this, and they do not realize that this is on the page as is, and it informs us here that the offer for new customers was applied. This transfer is without charges, and a promotional exchange rate will be applied for the initial $750. The rest of this transfer will apply the standard exchange rate. Then the delivery time frame is an estimated calculation based on the chosen payment method as well as the selected shipping method, the transaction review process, and the availability of the Remitly system and its partners as it is mentioned here. It is possible that the speed may not be visible on the screen, but the estimate will always be displayed in the shipping summary before you finalize your transfer request. So here it indicates that it is express, but do not assume it arrives instantly either. So let's click continue here and see what additional information it requests. It states shipping method. How would you prefer the money to be delivered? In this particular situation, it pertains to the individual receiving the funds in Colombia. If you intend to send money to a different nation, then how will that individual receive it in that specific country? In the context of Colombia, there are three available alternatives. A bank deposit, which essentially refers to a savings account, a bank account, cash pickup at a designated location that permits direct withdrawal, or a mobile wallet, which in Colombia is NEC among others. For cash pickup, it applies to banking agents or locations such as the checkout of an Éxito, a Carula, or a Super Inter. This is specifically for Colombia, and it is important to remember that it varies for each individual country. Lastly, a bank deposit is for when we wish to send money directly to a person's savings account. Now this has a minor asterisk, which is specifically mentioned here, that the recipient's account must be enabled to receive international money transfers, or the transfer will be delayed. It doesn't state it here, but it could also be rejected, which becomes a hassle to retrieve the money back. Therefore, if we are planning to send monetary funds to an individual, it is highly advisable to inquire with them or suggest that they contact their banking institution to verify if international money transfers are enabled, allowing them to receive the funds directly. Otherwise, it is preferable for us to revert and choose one of the alternative options such as cash withdrawal at an Éxito store and then proceed to input the necessary details. In this particular scenario, we are going to proceed in this manner. We are conducting a test here to demonstrate the step-by-step process. Here we will input Carlos Jimenez y Gonzalez as it is displayed, click continue, and then it prompts for the recipient's address. This is once again the address of the individual to whom we will be sending the funds. So we input something like Cali C101, for instance, in the city of Bogota and within the department of Bogota, and continue. Clearly, I am doing this solely for the purpose of this test and trial, but it is crucial that you input all this information accurately with genuine and truthful data to avoid any complications when sending the funds. Would you prefer us to send the recipient a notification with updates regarding the transfer? Essentially, this is so that once we send the funds to the individual, they receive text messages on their mobile device indicating that someone has sent them money, the funds are being processed, followed by another message stating the money is en route to their account or similar notifications, and essentially until the funds have been deposited into their account, they will continue to receive messages. If we desire this to occur, we input the individual's phone number here, but if we prefer not to notify them and choose to inform them ourselves or monitor it independently, we simply bypass this step and refrain from entering any phone number. Now, the rationale behind the transfer in this particular instance is that the monetary funds we intend to send to this individual will be allocated for familial support, educational purposes, savings, loan repayment, service payment, goods payment, insurance payment, tax payment, or charitable donations. Ultimately, this decision rests with you. I will designate it as familial support and subsequently click continue. Next, your personal information, which in this context likely requires minimal explanation, essentially pertains to our details, signifying the sender's information, who in this scenario would be located in either the United States or Spain dispatching the funds. Therefore, I will input a name, Camilo Vargas, and provide a date of birth. It is crucial to emphasize that you must be of legal age for this, just to clarify, and here we input any date, for instance February 8, 1990, and then proceed by clicking continue. Now, the details must precisely align with those on your account, as the transfer could be delayed if the information does not match accurately. Here, you click confirm, and then we input our address, city, state, and so on. In this instance, it will automatically load a US address, so we need to input it here. I'll just enter something like New York, New York, and I'll leave the postal code unchanged. I'll click continue, although in this case it requires me to enter a postal code, so I'll input it and click continue. Then it requests my phone number, which is mandatory to receive messages about contact via phone call or text message related to our Remitly account or the transfer. It's important to note that we don't necessarily have to enter a phone number from the country we're in. You can choose to use a number from another country, like Colombia in my case, and enter a Colombian phone number. So I'll just input any number here to demonstrate how to proceed. Click continue. There's a postal code error, but don't worry, this likely won't appear for you. It's just that the postal code must align with the address I entered. So I'll enter a matching postal code and continue. Once we've done this, we'll proceed to the payment method, meaning what we are going to add. In this case, it allows me to add a debit or credit card or pay directly with a bank account, and it says here that credit cards often treat remittances as cash advances, so use a debit card to avoid cash advance fees. Basically, in Colombia, it's like an advance, as if we're taking an advance, which sometimes results in the number of installments being automatically set to 24 or 36 months, depending on how the card is configured. This is important to keep in mind. It also says we can proceed with cash advances and make the payment with a card, but it mentions that changing the payment method to a bank account will change the delivery time to economy, which can impact the exchange rate and fees. This will change if we select this option. Let's proceed, and it asks us to add a bank account. Here, we need to add our account based on our details, choosing between a checking or savings account. It's important to note that it requires US account numbers since I'm sending money from the US. In this case, we must enter a US bank account. If you're sending from a country not on Remitly's list, it won't allow you to proceed. In my case, I'll go back and add a new card. I need to add a card to continue, but unfortunately it won't let me proceed because it requires a US issued card, which I don't have at the moment. After this, it will ask for the recipient's ID to withdraw the money. Once the money arrives, the person simply goes to the location to receive the money and presents their ID. After completing the deposit transfer, we go to the transfer history and it will appear there. If you encounter a similar issue, it's because we're sending money from the US and it only allows adding a card issued in the US. If the card isn't issued in the US, it will show that your card cannot be authorized. It's important to know this before sending money, although it might not be the only reason that in that case, you can contact your bank to inform them you're attempting an international transfer, and they may ask if you authorize these transactions. You say yes, re-enter the details, and you're all set. Once done, it will appear in your transfer history, showing the progress. You'll see details like how long it will take, if it has arrived, and if the person has withdrawn it if you chose cash withdrawal. That's all. I hope this video was helpful. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.